Presidio welcome you to this Veterans Day event. At this time, if you are able, I ask you to rise for the presentation of the colors, the tolling of the bells, and the national anthem. Present the colors. There has come a tradition in our nation that on Veterans Day we toll 21 bells in recognition of the unity of our nation and to honor the veterans who served. We are honored today to have Joelle Lowe of the Girl Scouts of America toll the 21 bells for us. We now invite you to join, led by Mr. Noah Griffith, in our national anthem.
What so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red flare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Post the colors. Please be seated. I now invite Ms. Camilla Smith, who is a member of the board of the Interfaith Center, to deliver an invocation.
Our dear Father in heaven, we thank Thee for our freedoms. We thank Thee for those men and women who have secured them for us, for our veterans. We thank Thee for the opportunity to honor them and gather together to do so. We ask Thee to bless those who are in wars at the moment throughout the world. We ask Thee to bless them, that these conflagrations will come to a conclusion, that our people who are fighting them will be able to come to a peaceful conclusion. We ask Thee to bless all those veterans who have served, that they will be blessed and recognized how much we appreciate the service that they have given us. And we say this in the name of Thy Son. Amen.
We are honored today to have a veteran come and speak to us, but more than a veteran, Mr. Michael Blecker has been the chief operator and supporter of Swords to Plowshares for more than 2 decades. His service and activities in support of veterans and others is truly remarkable and praiseworthy. Mike, please.
Thank you very much, really. It's a true honor to be here. Thank you for having me. Okay, well, welcome. And yes, I'm the director of Swords to Plowshares, and Swords is a nonprofit, community-based California corporation. We've been based in San Francisco. We have a service center, 1060 Howard Street. We also have a service center in Oakland at 333 Franklin Street. And we provide direct services. We have a drop-in program. Everyday vets come in there and we help them with a range of services they need. We have a job program. We have various levels of housing that we provide. That's very significant and important because of the large number of veterans who are homeless in our areas. And so we provide housing, we provide emergency housing, we provide rental assistance, eviction prevention, and we also have housing itself. We have almost 500 units of permanent supportive housing. We're opening some housing in Mission Bay, Paseo May project on Treasure Island. We have a program right here just down the road, and Girard Avenue. It's called the Veterans Academy, soon to be named the John Polson Veterans Community Center after a big supporter of swords, John Polson, who was a Marine, decorated Marine in Vietnam, and passed away due to Agent Orange exposure. And so we have 108 veterans just down the road here on Girard Avenue on 2 barracks. And we have a number of other housing units. We have housing on Vets Commons, we call it, which is on 150 Otis Street. So we provide all these range of services. But let me just tell you a little bit more about me. Not too much more, but I will say I'm the ED, but I'm also a Vietnam veteran. I served, I graduated high school. I grew up in Reading, Pennsylvania. I graduated high school in 1967, and I enlisted in September of my 18th birthday in September of 1967. And I took the oath with a number of other young fellows back in the day there. I think we took the oath to raise our right hand and defend the Constitution, if I'm not mistaken. And I did that, then I got on a bus and headed down to Fort Benning, where I went basic training and advanced infantry training and some other things, jump school, etc. And a year later, I was on my way to Vietnam. And this was in September of 1968. And I was there, I was sent there, and I was assigned to the 90th Replacement Battalion, because as folks know, in Vietnam, you didn't go to Vietnam as part of a large unit. You went individually, at least I did. Earlier, there were Marines that went over as a unit or attached to the unit they trained with, perhaps. But I went over there, and so many of us did as individuals. And so I was a part of the replacement battalion. So in that battalion, because I was going to jump school as airborne qualified, I was then sent over to the 101st Airborne Division, and I proceeded to serve there in the I Corps area. Vietnam was divided into 4 corps, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I was in the northernmost part of South Vietnam, the I Corps area. And that was from 68 and 69. I was there, and I was with the 2nd 327 of the 101st. Actually, I was with the 2nd Squad, 1st Platoon, B Company, 1st Brigade, 2nd Battalion, 327th Infantry of the 101st. And if you all know about infantry, what infantry basically does is we're sort of the bait, right? We go out there because that's the way wars oftenly fought, right? They got to find the enemy, and that's who we are. We were sort of the bait, and we went on patrol. We went on ambushes. We went from one hill to the next hill. The hill was on the map. It was Hill 878, and then go to Hill 879. And on the way to that hill, let's see what happens. And then you had all this firepower. You called air strikes, and you call, if you're near a fire base, you called artillery, what have you. If you're near the waters, you called a Navy gunship. And you try to survive, and you try to get through that period of time. So I managed to get through that period of time, and I came back, and I then proceeded. I moved to California, and I started. I had my GI Bill, which was one of the reasons why I enlisted in the first place, to get the GI Bill. And it allowed me to go to, in California, I was able to go to a community college because community colleges were very inexpensive places. And you could get in there fairly easily. So I was able to, as long as I had a good, ID card, identifying myself, boom, I was a freshman in college, the community college at San Bernardino Valley College. And I proceeded to go to college those 2 years, and then at that time, anybody in community college in California could go zip right into the university, no problems. By the way, the cost of the community college at San Bernardino was zero. So even though the GI Bill wasn't very much, it was like $325 a month, I was living like a king. And I don't mean to taunt people, but I was spending like $40 a month for housing, and gasoline was 21 cents a gallon. Anyway, the life, right? The life we led. So anyway, I was living in California, and I was as soon as I got out of San Bernardino, boom, right to the university, no problems. And I went to Berkeley, and Berkeley was like $600 a quarter, if I recollect. Not too bad. Anyway, so I graduated, and then I was interested in doing stuff for veterans, and I actually went to law school with the idea that I would help vets who were having issues that I was aware of. So I went to a place called New College, California School of Law, and a part of that school was that they would place you in these public apprenticeships. And some of the people who were working at the time at Swords to Plowshares, helping vets with getting benefits from the VA and upgrading their discharges, which is another story, were also going to school, and they recruited me sort of in there. And so I started working at Swords in 1976. And so it's been quite a ride since 1976, these 4+ decades. And I just have to say, those 4 decades were very crucial in so many respects, but just from the standpoint of the veteran service movement, and that's what it was a movement at the time. Because a lot of us, coming back to Vietnam, and the Vietnam veterans realized that we were like pretty much alone. It was really hard to get much support from anybody. There was just lots of resistance. There was lots of about the war. Those who opposed the war, many of us did, and those who didn't. And the divisions between our fathers, right? The World War II generation was intense. And I can't tell you how many veterans I worked with over the years who never really stayed home. They went back to their hometowns and they took off, or sort of migratory, went back and just tried to stake out a life. It was very, very difficult times. I mean, and so those divisions were really, part of the family. That's how deep they were. And so there were a lot of issues to deal with, but we really felt like we were alone out there. And so we started working in the community at Swords back in, like I said, I started there in 1976. We've been going on since 1974, and we just started dealing with the issues. There's a great book that was written. It was called The Politics of Readjustment, and where they looked at like some key issues about Vietnam veterans and the Vietnam War. And they studied 3 things. They studied the issue of PTSD, i.e. invisible wounds that were generated by that war, especially, not just by that war, all wars, right? Even though they termed it different things, soldier's heart, battle fatigue, shell shock, all that stuff. But the issue for Vietnam veterans, the issue of PTSD was to get it identified medically as part of the Diagnostical Statistical Manual, Volume 4 at the time. And it was an enormous struggle, because that's just doesn't happen because you can point to these issues. You had to establish this proof among the psychiatric community and show that it was a true disorder, right? A true condition, a true illness. And that took tremendous amount of challenges, and the politics of that are just very deep. You could talk all day about that, right? So anyway, they did establish that after, tremendous amount of struggle and strain. They actually established that. And we had to really push against the grain on all that stuff, right? So there was that issue. And then there was another big issue called Agent Orange, which was, the use of herbicide. Just one of those tactics of war, right? Devised by the best minds in the country, right? The universities, that generate all these research in the lab and the work and the refinement of great modern weaponry, including environmental weapons, which of course exist today in spades, right? And there's nothing more devastating to the environment than war, if you think about it. And certainly my experience in Vietnam, how that whole country was pocketed with landmines and this herbicide, and this is a country that was an agricultural country, right? Anyway, it was just devastating all around, but it was also devastating for the environment, and that has continued to today, of course. And then the other big issue was the whole issue of the establishment of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington. Again, a very controversial monument, right? People weren't crazy about this idea, about these black granite walls, right? With the names, not just some glorified, expression of war, but here's the cost and the sacrifice. A lot of controversy about that, but it has proven to be really important in our healing. So these were all like three major issues that could be studied and discussed, and how you build support and what you are up against, and how you press on, and who your allies and who your adversaries are, and sometimes your adversaries become allies and vice versa, right? In our struggles for justice, because that's what this was. So that played out in the communities as well, and it soared. And our effort to sort of get recognition from the older veterans, get recognition from the city officials, get recognition so we can get resources to do our work. And that work meant basically being in a community based, being where the veterans are, being completely accessible, learning what their needs were, and then driving programs and services to meet their needs, right? That was the work. And then the struggle was trying to get resources so you could do the work, right? So we did that. We were always in the community. We were always devising, a jobs program, sort of the services we have today, a jobs program. The community was devastated with less than honorable discharge, a bad paper that was administered that is a terrible injustice in so many respects that exists today, where vets are unfairly kicked out of the service, denied health care, have a stigma every time they apply for a job. If did you serve in the military? What was your discharge? How that can act as a lifetime stigma. We were working against just a lot of things, but we continue to do so, and I think we helped pave the way, right, for much greater recognition for future generations of vets, whether they were in the post 9/11 era, right, or whether who faced their own issues around chronic fatigue, issues around use of depleted uranium, issues around their own need to get recognized for invisible wounds, right? And even today with the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, the global war on terror and all those things, the veterans have I think took our lessons, but they realize that you have to push against this. It's not given to you. You have to fight. Every inch you have to fight. But the fight starts in the community, because that's who you're connected with your community. They give you the strength. They give you the lessons. They give you the inspiration, and that allows you to press on. Whether or not you get support, you come back to the community, you restore yourself from the community, you hold on to each other, right? Like medics, right? You hold on to each other. You know you're doing good work, but sometimes it's not validated by anybody. But you press on, as long as you're connected to the community. And that's what Stewards has strived to do all these years. And I think, we've been able to prevail in so many ways. And I think we've been really lucky to be in San Francisco, been lucky to be given these opportunities to develop all this housing, to create all these, I think, exciting opportunities to completely continue to address these needs, because, these wars are devastating. And they last far beyond the battlefield, right? Far beyond the battlefield. And they affect not just those who fight the war, but their families, their communities, their neighbors, everybody, right? It's deep, it's very deep, and we just have to fight back to prevent war, quite frankly, prevent war. It's killing us, it's killing the earth, war, right? So we do that, and we try to stay on top of that, but what gives us strength is our ongoing services and staying connected. Presently, it's really significant of how many vets are aging, are seniors now, are frail, need our help. there's something like 3 times more veterans who are over the age of 65 than non-veterans. So they're a significant part of the seniors in our communities, right? And they need to have live with dignity. They need to have that a good life, that quality of life. They deserve that. They certainly earned it. But they're going to have to. We're all going to have to support them to make sure that that happens. So at Swords, you know, we recognize that, and it's sort of an eyeball test where you can. You know, you can see people, right? You can see the pain in their faces and how they're moving around, and you know what's going on. And you know, even once you house folks, the job's not done because people need to be connected to community. They need to heal. So a lot of what we have done is really based on that. It's not just getting veterans off the street. And I think Swords has played a big role, as have many important our partners, as has the VA that has helped us, providing rental subsidies that has made this possible. But it's not just getting folks off the streets. It's like making sure where they are, they don't lose that connection and that community. Just what you need, right? Just what you want, right? That's what they want. That's what they need. It's no division. We're all part of it. So that's what we tried to do. You know, we were able to fight in the state of California, and the governor signed into law this state senior pilot. And what it's going to do is create $25 million from the state of California over the next 3 years to support greater care for those formerly homeless seniors who are in these housing sites but don't have enough contact, don't have enough peer support, you know, aren't connected enough. And so we're really excited. We're going to operate one of those programs because we have nearly 500 formerly homeless veterans, and many of them are over the age of 55. And if you experience homelessness, by the way, 50 is the new 70, as they say, you know, because you have advanced chronic issues if you spend any time on the street. I mean, these are like, you have pain, you have issues with diabetes, you have issues with your legs, your feet, your back, like everyone does when they're seniors, but you spend any time on the street, those things are accelerated dramatically, right? Dramatically. So we got to pay attention. We got to care for our seniors and care for all of our vets. So I'm very proud that we've been able to fight that, establish that. Also, going forward, we recognize the importance of community. We're going to add hours to our drop-in center. So we're going to be trying to open 7 days a week, evenings, so that homeless vets have a place to go. Because, you know, you're on the street, there's no public safety. There's no like public place where you're welcomed or you feel warm or you feel like a human being, right? You're pushed into these areas, you're moved along by private security, what have you. And even in the housing we provide, there's not enough public space. The housing is too, affordable housing, if you will, are just too jammed. It's not right. So, you know, we're very active trying to do that. Recently, you probably heard about the number of suicides of veterans, right? I think they had 22 veterans a day were committing suicide. A lot of them were actually seniors who were committing suicide. And so Swords was one of the programs around the country. The VA has provided what they call suicide prevention grants. And we just received one, and it's really going to allow us to basically train all of our staff in the basic protocols of recognizing suicide risks, you know, to try to prevent those risks. But it's also basically an understanding that we need community mental health. And I say that, I mean, mental health that sinks into the community, right? That's accessible, that's maybe it's peer-based, right? It's not necessarily therapy per se. It's just mental health, it's connection. And so there's an increasing amount of that, and I think that's really what the Suicide Prevention Grant recognizes, this wraparound care, this connection that people really need. So we're happy to get that grant. We're opening housing on Treasure Island. It's called the Maseo May Housing Program. We're going to start renting it up very soon, I think in a couple months. Very excited, 104 units from scratch. It's going to be gorgeous housing, as it should be, just some of the housing we have. And we're all proud of that, very, very proud of that. And of course, that's possible because we don't do it ourselves, right? At Swords, we work with our partners, in this case, Chinatown Community Development Center, but it wouldn't work but for the city and county of San Francisco with the mayor's office of funding and all the support that goes on with that, the VA, the rental subsidies, our partners in and around and there's like an ecosystem, if you will, about addressing poverty, right? It's not just one, it's gotta be, everybody's gotta be tied into it because it's a major endeavor to address poverty. And that's what really war is connected to. War is connected to impoverishment, right? Of the mind, body, and spirit. Let me add that. I also want to say just briefly that about the PACT Act. Have you heard about the PACT Act? I wish I could tell you what PACT meant, but essentially it's sort of a recognition that there are the wars. I mean, the military is a very dangerous occupation, whether somebody's shooting at you or not. And there's nothing that demonstrates that more than the fact of all these terrible things environmentally. They call it these burn pits, These are like, not just like, throwing horseshoes at a pit. These were like acres of pits that were dug deep. They dug in and they threw everything in there. Animal corpses, the worst kind of chemicals, toxics, and then they applied some jet fuel and lit it up, right? Not a lot of protocols in terms of containment of that. And so people, it was there, acres of this, and it went 24/7. And veterans have been exposed to this for over 15 years, right? And they had to fight like hell to get this act passed. And the president signed because his own son, right, had brain cancer as a result of his own exposure to these burn pits. That's what it took, right? It still takes all that effort, right? So that's why I think on Veterans Day it's important for all of us to recognize that things aren't just going to happen. We have a responsibility. These wars are conducted on our behalf, right? Not just somebody else. We bear some responsibility, and lives are only going to improve. War is only going to end if we all recognize of our mutual responsibility to do that, and use our resources to educate all of ourselves around that, right? So I just want to finish by saying that I learned also how important a national healthcare system is. And for veterans, they have something called the VA, Veterans Health Administration. And, I'm not saying there's no complaining about the VA, but I am saying we're far better off to have a viable VA health system rather than have it privatized and have all the money the VA has go into the pockets of the private healthcare insurance system. And veterans really need that. But you know what? It's got to be protected. And so we got to pay attention. I think I'm probably going on way too long. But I want to thank you for your patience, and I guess I'm honored to be here on Veterans Day like you all. Thank you.
Mike, thanks very much for that very educational presentation. Thank you. We're honored to have Jim Parrish-Smith at the organ chorus. Let's have some music. Buddhist Church of San Francisco.
Good morning.
Morning.
In Buddhism, a bodhisattva is a sentient being who serves to benefit others, to alleviate one's suffering. And I would like to include all the veterans we are remembering and honoring today, who made the ultimate sacrifice with their service to this country. May we honor that sacrifice through the perpetuation of peace, goodwill, and understanding. From Shantideva's The Way of the Bodhisattva. May I be a guard for those who need protection, a guide for those on the path, a boat, a raft, a bridge for those who wish to cross the flood. May I be a lamp in the darkness, a resting place for the weary, a healing medicine for all who are sick, a vase of plenty, a tree of miracles. And for the boundless multitudes of living beings, may I bring sustenance and awakening. May all beings everywhere plagued by suffering of body and mind obtain an ocean of happiness and joy.
Okay, they said I could talk as long as I want. What's a veteran? According to Webster, it's someone experienced, usually someone who served in the armed forces. Today, November 11th, is designated as Veterans Day. Remember, for those of you who are more senior, originally, November 11th was Armistice Day, the end of World War I, and then it was changed to something else, and then it was changed to something else. Then it was put together with a weekend, so we'd have 3-day weekends. But really, you are here today to recognize individuals who have served in our armed forces. And Mike Blecker is a wonderful example because he was a soldier. Soldiers and sailors and Marines and airmen, those individuals, not the generals and the colonels and the others, but the individual service members are the ones who we are primarily honoring by our presence here today, by your presence here today. Let that not be understated in any fashion. If you are under 65 years old, you probably don't remember or did not experience a draft. Before about 1968 or 69, when you turned 18, you went to the Selective Service Office or to the post office or someplace where you had to go, and you signed your name on a form, and you therefore became eligible for the selective service, for the draft, to serve in our armed forces. And our government, in its wisdom, decided that wasn't a good idea, so we did away with the draft. And everybody who served, or who began to serve after about 1970, raised their hand and volunteered. Each of those people said, it's important to serve my nation. Those are the kinds of people, in addition to the older ones, some of whom got drafted, who we are recognizing with Veterans Day today. This is not Memorial Day. That's in May. And we do something out at the cemetery headed by the VA, and it's important that we do that. There's no greater penalty than someone could pay than to be killed while serving their nation. And on Memorial Day, we recognize that. But today, the 11th of November, we are recognizing all who served. And let me digress just for a second, because everyone who served comes from a family. And that family, while not putting on a uniform and not getting on a ship or a plane or going somewhere to have other people shoot at them or not, that family too deserves our recognition and our admiration and our thanks. So from Pete Gleichenhauser's perspective, I thank each of you who has come here today to help us celebrate Veterans Day. There are a couple of people who merit recognition from here because of what they do. Supervisor Myrna Melgar is here from the County of San Francisco. We have Miss Christine Pelosi and Mr. Dan Bernal from Representative Nancy Pelosi's office here in San Francisco. And let it not be understated that some of the legislation that Michael talked about in his remarks is in place because of Speaker Pelosi and We certainly want to recognize Jim Baldwin, who has provided some music for us. There will be more. And for those who are with us but not present today, Etienne has been expert in his professional provision of that service online. At this time, as has been become an custom here at the Interfaith Center for the Presidio, we are going to play some music that will be recognizable and especially recognizable to certain individuals here. I would ask that if you have served and you hear a song that represents your service, you please stand when that service song is played. Chaplain Jerry? United States Army. Coast Guard, the United States Air Force, the Coast Guard is directed. orchestra you had. You see some of the posters that are decorated here. I invite now Ms. Kamala Smith, who is on the board of the Interfaith Center at the Presidio, to tell you a little bit about what that's about.
So I would like to tell you about a very special veteran who served during World War II. He was General Omar Bradley's chaplain in Europe. And he was Episcopal chaplain Frederick MacDonald. While looking for places of worship for his troops, he visited many bombed-out chapels, cathedrals, and synagogues. At each of these houses of worship, he would pick up shards of broken glass to remind him of the visit and of the tragedy and destruction of war. He wrote down what he observed as he visited these places. He sent the pieces and descriptions home to his mother, who kept them for him. Later in his life, he served as a minister here in San Francisco of St. Luke's Episcopal Church. After retirement, Reverend MacDonald kept these shards under his bed in his retirement home, and he showed the stained glass pieces to friends who said, you know, you're not getting any younger, Fred. What are you going to do with these? And they suggested he should do something. So he contacted a French glass artist, Armel Leroux, who had just restored the windows at Grace Cathedral. And she agreed to create stained glass windows and other art pieces herself and with her fellow glass artists. So he had some funds and was able to put these all together. And these are a few, these are 4 of the 25 works of art and that were created from those shards of glass. And you'll see as you look at these posters that they are part of the design. So in the large red one, it's called the Crown of Thorns, and the thorns are part of the shards of glass. In this one with the music notes, each of those notes come from a different tradition. One is from a Catholic cathedral, one is from a church, a Protestant church, and the other is from a Jewish synagogue. So at his death, Father MacDonald donated the 25 works of art to the Interfaith Center at the Presidio. And we steward this chapel, and we make it available for all traditions, all faith traditions. We are in the process of building a gallery to house these windows and to restore this chapel for the benefit of all veterans and to remember those who gave their time, courage, and lives that we might live in freedom. We are currently having an exhibit of the windows, and that's the second piece that you received with the program. So they're on display now at the Veterans Building in their gallery, and it's open from Wednesday to Sunday from 1 to 6 p.m. each day. So we invite you to see it, and also there'll be a lecture in honor of Veterans Day at the main library up on the 6th floor, and the head of the history department at San Francisco State will give a lecture on the good things that come out of tragedy like World War II. So I hope that you'll have a chance to go see these and to attend the lecture if you're able to do that, and to remember that out of tragedy, out of World War II, for example, came NATO, United Nations, the Marshall Plan, and these stained glass windows. Thank you.
Chaplain Reginald Bradley comes to us from the VA.
Peace and blessings to all. Thank you for having me today. First and foremost, the staff here at the City O. Just for our benediction, just briefly about myself, I come by way of the Atlanta VA in Atlanta, Georgia, and I was hired as a COVID hire at Reno VA, Sierra Nevada healthcare system at the peak of COVID. So I've seen a lot of things that our veterans and families have dealt with, and just blessed to have worked with them. I'm just happy to be here. I started working at the San Francisco VA healthcare system in January, where I work in the pre-surgery and post-surgery department, as many of our veterans are preparing for long-awaited procedures. And also, I work in the senior living center in the afternoons. Provide the worship services on Sundays for our inpatient veterans, and also hold groups such as self-worth, gratitude, forgiveness, reconciliation, fear, doubt, hope, guilt, moral injuries, the unseen wounds that our veterans deal with. But I'd like to lay the foundation of words I heard from a veteran in Nevada that I'll never forget. And he said that a veteran is never dead unless he or she has been forgotten. And those words always stay with me. And I say that to say that when opportunity exists, let us just continue to be a listening ear for our veterans. It doesn't take a lot. Sometimes we just want you to listen. I'm also a part of the psychosocial rehabilitation and recovery. Is online mental health that is very encouraging for our veterans who are still struggling with a lot of social issues as they strive to integrate into society and meet the challenging needs that they require. And also let us, when opportunity exists, to just be a compassionate neighbor, provide transportation to the store or to a VA appointment, providing words of comfort when a pet has died, bringing a veteran out of isolation into a loving community. I'm a chaplain, so I hear all of the stories, all of those things that our veterans struggle with that may not be seen other than the physical wounds. Our veterans must be held in the highest esteem, so let us remember the surviving families also that have lost veterans to death. And I'm in the inpatient senior living center, so I see a lot of the psychosocial needs of the veterans' families, and also our caregivers who are sometimes caring for veterans and going home caring for their own children and parents. I'm a part of the caregiver support team as well. And I like those words in various situations just to resonate through the minds and hearts as we prepare to leave today. The needs are growing, and I think our keynote speaker, he hit a lot of points, and I'm just encouraged for the growing resources for our veterans that are out here. And he said 2 words, it's about making that connection and getting those resources out there so that our veterans can, their needs can be met. Let us prepare for our benediction. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give give you peace. You be blessed in your coming and going. Amen.
As we come to the end of our program this morning, I invite Noah Griffith again to lead us in song.
Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of rain, for purple mountains, majesty above the fruited plain. America, God shed His grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood, from sea to shining sea. Oh, beautiful for heroes fruit in liberating strife, who more than self their country loved, and mercy more than life. America, America, may God thy gold refine, till all success be nobleness, and every gain divine. Oh, beautiful for patriots street, that speed beyond the years. Thine alabaster cities green, undimmed by human tears. America, America, God shed His grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood, from sea to shining sea.
Retire the colors. There are some things wrong with our country, but I am proud to be an American. Thank you.